Welcome back to Author to Author. On today's video, I'll be doing another exciting chapter reading. And if you like the book, please check the description for a link to the Amazon page. Before we begin, just a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed and supported the channel so far. Please leave a like and comment on the video, as that will help boost engagement even further. Finally, I would like to do this full time, so if you can and would like to, please consider buying me a coffee with the link in the description. This is a chapter from The Ruins of Winterton by Stephanie Mather. Chapter 1, Ireland, 1720. Gemma peeked down the hallway toward the main staircase of Winterton Manor, her current mood at odds with the sunshine outside. Downstairs, her brother Nolan conversed with Lord Somerset. Gemma strained to catch some of their conversation, but to no avail. She'd spent only 30 minutes making pleasantries with the man before Nolan had sent her to a room while he discussed her future. That was an hour ago. It would be nice if she spent more time interviewing her potential future husband than her brother did. Ever since her father died, making Nolan the Earl of Winterton, he seemed in a hurry to marry her off. This was the third suitor she'd met in as many days. Nolan was only 21, a year younger than herself. How he had persuaded so many distinguished guests to travel to this part of Ireland and stay so briefly at the estate. No doubt her sizable dowry and Winterton's prominence in the region had something to do with it. Lord Somerset had been pleasant enough, but he was much older than her, and she didn't like the idea of a husband so advanced in years. Besides, how could one get to know a man's character after only one interview? It was so unfair. She smoothed the skirt of her day dress and made her way back to her room. It was too pleasant of a day to wait around for Nolan to decide her future. The thought riled her up all over again. Maybe a vigorous ride through the meadow would calm her. The rolling green hills and the quiet darkness of the woods beyond always had a soothing effect on her, almost as if the land spoke to her soul. With the decision made, she rang for her maid. Mary knocked and entered a few moments later. "What is it, my lady?" "I wish to go for a ride. Please help me dress." After helping Gemma change clothes, Mary pinned up a few errant curls of Gemma's ebony locks, then knelt on the floor to lace one of Gemma's boots. "Did your brother give you leave to ride into the country while your suitor is still here, my lady? You wouldn't want to anger him when he's trying so hard to find you a good husband." Gemma stuck her second boot in front of Mary. "I don't care what he allows. It's my life. I can do what I want. Besides, as the eldest, I'm just as capable of making decisions." "True, my lady, but women are not allowed that privilege. If they were, Lord Winterton would not be the one interviewing your potential husbands." Mary was right, but perhaps Nolan wouldn't mind as long as she didn't cross paths with Lord Somerset on his way down the drive. She would ride in the back country to avoid him, and if Nolan did mind, it was too bad. He should have asked her opinion before inviting potential suitors. She looked in the mirror and pinned her hat on. "I will see you before supper, Mary." "Yes, my lady." Gemma crept down the servants' stairs to avoid drawing her brother's attention and hustled through the kitchen to the garden. The weather was unusually warm for March, and the sun felt good on her skin, but it likely wouldn't last long. After a quick jog around the garden wall, she stood before the stables. There, Braden Murphy, in all his sweaty glory, laboured before her, unloading hay from a wagon. She watched as his muscles tightened the linen shirt across his back. The stablemaster's apprentice had been at the estate since he was 12. Gemma remembered what happened nearly 2 years later, the day of her 14th birthday, when he first saddled her horse for her, his shaggy brown hair falling over his warm, coffee-coloured eyes made her heart flutter. The worst part was that he seemed to know it. She took great pains to control her manner around him after that, but over the years she only found him more attractive. After a few more sinful moments of watching him work, Gemma cleared her throat. Braden looked up and lowered his pitchfork. "Can I do something for you, my lady?" he said in his Irish brogue. Gemma directed her eyes to his face. "Please saddle my horse. I wish to ride." "Will someone be joining you?" A thrill raced up her spine at the thought of him accompanying her, but that would never do. Soon she would wed a proper gentleman. She must be firm. "No, I will ride alone." A frown creased Braden's brow. "'Tis not safe to go far by yourself. Where are you riding to?" She raised an eyebrow at him. "Not that it is any of your business, but I merely wish to ride in the estate's back country. Now please, saddle my horse." Braden nodded and entered the stable. In the past, her brother had accompanied her on rides, but that changed after their father died. Now Nolan was too busy to entertain his sister. She just wished that finding a husband wasn't at the top of his task list. She was 22. It hadn't bothered him or her father that she was unwed before her father had died and Nolan reached his majority. Ever since the mourning period ended, it seemed like marrying her off was Nolan's greatest priority. While she waited for Braden to saddle her horse, she collected her riding crop from the tack room. After what seemed like an eternity, Braden returned with 2 horses. Her gelding, Ember, and a second. He tied them to the hitching post near the door and faced her. "Can I give you a leg up, my lady?" "Why did you bring 2 when I told you I was riding alone?" "Oh, well, Frederick here," he patted the neck of the second gelding, "needs some exercise, so I thought I would run him around the pasture a bit." Gemma narrowed her eyes at him. "I will ride alone." "Of course, my lady. Was not planning to accompany you." "Good." She untied Ember's reins, led him to the mounting block, and seated herself. With a tap of her crop, she took off towards the back country. Before she was a furlong away, she heard Braden urge his gelding forward with a whoop. She raced across the meadow as fast as she dared, finally stopping when she reached the burned-out foundation of the old castle. When she turned to see if Braden followed, she noted he'd come to a stop about a furlong away. Satisfied that he wouldn't invade her privacy more than that, she dismounted and walked to the remains of the fortress. The ruins stood on a stone ridge, blocking the only convenient path to the woods beyond. Her mother used to take her and Nolan to the ruins for walks on fine days. She told them the structure had burned the same night she wed Lord Winterton while they slept in the newer manor house. No one had lived in the castle when it burned, but the massive blaze was the talk of the surrounding towns for weeks. Gemma had been born in her father's townhouse in Dublin while the House of Lords was in session, but had lived in her current home in Southern Ireland ever since. Once she had asked her mother what the old castle was like before the fire. Her mother said it was abandoned and crumbling when she met Gemma's father. Gemma's grandfather had moved his family and the servants into the current manor decades before her parents met, and the old castle was mainly used for storage when the fire started. Leaning against the remains of a stone wall, Gemma gazed across the expanse of fields between herself and home. Braden stood there beside Frederick as he gazed in the meadow. When Braden raised his face in her direction, she turned and walked into the ruins lest he think she was watching him. She did enough of that from her bedroom window when he worked the horses in the yard. Gemma passed through the open archway of a towering limestone wall. Daylight filtered in where the roof had burned away, along with most everything else that wasn't made of stone or iron. To her left, a staircase led to a small landing of an otherwise non-existent upper level. A maze of walls directed her through the great hall, into the kitchens, and to the dungeon stairs. The dungeon was the oldest and most intact section of the castle. Carved into the ground, it could still hold prisoners. This lower level survived the fire, but anyone imprisoned there would have died from the heat and smoke. An uneasy feeling crept through her bones as she passed by. She'd only ventured down the stairwell once. Given that the castle predated Gemma's great-grandfather, many prisoners had likely died in the dungeon before the fire. Not interested in meeting their ghosts today, she hurried past and reached the exit in the back wall. Grateful to be outside, with the ruins between herself and Braden, she meandered to the edge of the forest. The quiet and the shadow of the woods surrounded her, and she felt her sour mood drain away. She walked the length of the ruins through the woods, then headed back the way she had come. Just before she reached the edge of the woods, a circular stone structure missing a few stones at the top marked where the old well once stood. She looked into the pit, placing her hand on what was left of a surprisingly solid foundation. The darkness within whispered of things ancient and unseen. How many people had fetched water here in the past? How many secrets had been shared near its depths? The well was far too far from the manor to be of any use now. Like the castle, it remained a neglected reminder of the past. In the dirt next to the well, she spotted a shiny object. She picked it up to discover it was an old copper farthing. Perhaps fate would favour her if she made a wish with the found money. She looked into the well. "I wish to choose my husband instead of Nolan," she whispered before tossing the farthing inside. The coin fell quite a distance before reaching the bottom with a faint splash. If only her wish could come true. Sighing, she turned towards the manor. It would be best to head back before Nolan wondered where she was. If she hadn't been so aggravated, she never would have left before Lord Somerset. She made her way through the ruins to retrieve her horse on the other side. As she passed near the old dungeon, a noise emanated from the stone stairwell. It sounded like a voice whispering, "Wait." She peered down the steps into the dark hall and wished she had a torch or lantern. "Hello?" she called. A rat darted out of the stairwell, forcing a shriek of surprise from her lips as she danced out of its way. She wasn't afraid of rats, but she wasn't overly fond of them either. Mindful that her brother would surely miss her if she stayed out any longer, and not wishing to see the rat again, she hurried towards the exit. She rounded a corner and raised her hands to protect her face as she barreled into the unexpected impediment of Braden's chest. He caught her by her upper arms before she could tumble backward. "I heard you scream. What's happened?" Her cheeks heated. "I heard a noise in the dungeon, but it was only a rat." A lopsided smirk twisted his lips. "You screamed because of a rat?" "It surprised me. I didn't mean to." Noticing the warmth of his steadying hands through her sleeves, she struggled to free herself from his grasp. "Let me go. I need to go home." He released her and accompanied her to her horse, where he cupped his hands to make a step. "Let me help you up." "Thank you." She vaulted onto the saddle, situated her right leg into place, and tapped Ember with her crop before Braden could ask her to wait for him. She should have given him a different reason for her scream. Now he would no doubt tease her about that rat every time she wanted to ride. When she reached the stable, she dismounted and handed the reins of her gelding to a groom before heading to the family home. Hopefully, Nolan hadn't missed her yet. "Gemma!" Nolan glared at her from his study doorway as soon as she entered and set foot in the hallway. "Come here, please." Already hesitant from his displeased tone, she made her way without haste. Upon reaching the entrance, she found he'd retreated to his desk. "Yes, brother." "Please, sit," he said, indicating a chair before the mahogany desk that had once belonged to their father. The sturdy dark wood reminded her of her father's power and strength before he became ill. She settled herself on the chair and waited. Nolan's brown eyes penetrated her blue ones. "Where were you? I had hoped you would bid Lord Somerset farewell, but you were not to be found in the house before he left." Gemma met his gaze. "I beg your pardon. I thought a bit of air would be nice, so I took a brief ride to the old castle. Your absence did not put you in a favourable light with Lord Somerset. I'm sorry. I did not think I would be missed, as you seem to have taken the lead in deciding his worthiness." Nolan sighed. "Gemma, I know you think I'm not taking your feelings into account with this suitor business, but it's in your best interest that I find a suitable match for you. I know you think that, but how can you know if someone is a good match for me when you don't even know how I feel about him? And how can I know how I feel about him when you spend more time with the man than I do? Marriage is a contract, and as your guardian, I must find a man who can provide for you. You would not have the skill to discern that, I fear." She stared at him in awe of his arrogance. "Nolan, I am a full year older than you. If I am incapable of making such decisions, then how could you possibly have gained that skill in fewer years on earth than I? You are a woman. Only a man can know the worth of another man." Gemma shook her head. "How can I reason with you when you spout such nonsense? Please, get on with your scolding, and I will remove my inferior wit from your study post-haste." Nolan stared at her for a moment, then sighed again. "In the future, when a suitor is visiting, please remain in the house until he leaves, or until you have received permission from me to go out." "Yes, your lordship," she bit out sweetly. "If it pleases you, I wish to go to my room now." Nolan waved her away, and she fled upstairs. She almost slammed her door, but thought better of it and closed it quietly. Good sense did not prevent her from throwing herself onto her bed in a fit of tears, however. When her storm quieted, Mary inquired through the door if she needed anything. Gemma took a deep breath and answered she did not. There was nothing anyone could do, unless they could change Nolan's mind about marrying her off as soon as possible. She had already applied her own arguments to no avail. All she could do was hope he chose well and appeal to his sense of brotherly love to choose another if she couldn't abide by his choice. She flopped onto her back to stare at the designs on the ceiling moulding. The folds in the plaster brought to mind the way Braden's shirt clung to him while he forked the hay before her ride. Her memory brought the feel of his grip once again to her upper arms, where he'd caught her when leaving the ruins. At the thought of the ruins, a shiver passed through her. Had a voice emanated from within the shadows of the dungeon, or just the rat? I hope you've enjoyed listening to this fantastic book. If you want to continue the story, please find the link in the description below. Also, while you're there, please give me a like and drop a comment. It really helps the channel grow. If you'd like to support the channel further, please consider following the link to buy me a coffee. Every little helps. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.